So, it's been 24 hours, how are you all feeling? That news yesterday blew my mind, and by the looks of it, it blew a lot of other people's minds as well. So, today I want to talk about the problems with this remake. Now, as you all know, I personally am pretty excited for the idea of a Halo 1 remake. It's something that I've wanted for a while. However, the response to it when I looked at Twitter and other stuff was a lot more mixed than I thought it was going to be upon the news. So in this video, I want to try and address most of the main concerns that people have about the Halo 1 remake and try and offer maybe some counter arguments or maybe some other ways of thinking about these concerns to try and quell them, because I truly, down to my heart, believe that this game, the big emphasis is on if it's done right, but if it's done right, could genuinely be something that we've dreamt of and asked for years, just kind of packaged in a different format. So today I want to try and put everyone's worries as best as I can to rest and just maybe get people that aren't super optimistic a little bit more optimistic about the Halo 1 remake. And on that note, there's two things that I want to outline before we start. So firstly, this game, by the looks of it, is not a remaster and it's not a reboot. It's a remake, which is very different to the other two. And secondly, I want you to view this remake through the lens of it being done like the Resident Evil remake. So if you don't know, the Resident Evil remakes are essentially the golden standard for modern day video game remakes. Not only are they excellent standalone games that also honor their past versions, again, excellently, but they were also near single-handedly responsible for reviving that entire franchise after what was not exactly a great game with Resident Evil 6. So for every concern that you might have and for every concern that we cover today, I just want you to ask yourself if specifically the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4 remakes, which were excellent, validate those concerns. So let's get started. Now, the first major concern people have that I absolutely understand and actually am on kind of a similar page with is that people just don't have faith in 343 anymore, right? Halo Infinite was meant to be the game that restored faith in the studio, that completely fixed sentiment, that all of their silly, stupid decisions beforehand had made, and as we know, it did the complete opposite. It only made that worse. Now, I found it quite funny yesterday when I released my video, so I was obviously quite excited, quite animated. People started calling me a shill, people started saying that like, oh, I don't have good taste or stuff like that, and regarding the whole 343 shill thing, right, without going into any excessive detail, that studio completely cratered my business and my hobby after Halo Infinite. Like, I'll put a picture on the screen, but Halo Infinite, what they did with that game, I can't quite put into words the damage that caused, and my enjoyment of my career was essentially shot twice in the back of the head from that game, to be perfectly honest with you. So I'm not going to sit here and defend them ardently by any means. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh no, you should have complete faith in them now, because I mean, I watched them release a game that just did everything that the previous game had done badly, even worse, right? So just bear that in mind with what I'm going to say. I will say that the new management, people were judging them based on what happened with Infinite, like the last year, because Infinite obviously is kind of just dead now, right? In terms of development. I would just wait to fully judge the management when they release a whole game, because how they manage a game that was kind of already on its way out compared to how they release a brand new game are two entirely different things. I'm not saying you should have complete faith. I'm not saying whip out the hopium and start huffing it. By any means, do not do that. Just be receptive to the fact that they haven't released a game yet and that their philosophies are radically different to Bonnie Ross, to Chris Lee, to all the ones that were there before, Frank O'Connor, and I hope for the best. We don't know for sure, but just have, I'm not saying put your faith in them. I'm not saying blindly trust them. You should not be doing that, but just be open to the fact that they haven't proved themselves yet with an actual game, and if this goes right, it could be a great way to do that. Now, the second concern that I've seen people saying is that this game is going to be a reboot of the Halo franchise. There have been like a few weird rumors over the last maybe like year or so from partially reliable sources talking, not saying it's going to happen, but talking about the idea of a Halo reboot, of rebooting the franchise and rebooting the universe. And I've said it so many times, right, but I'm going to say it again just for the sake of it. Halo is not getting rebooted, right? And also, by extension, this game, I've seen someone said it jokingly on Twitter, and a load of people just suddenly believed it. This game is not going to be in the silver timeline, right? Just any connection to the silver timeline, no, that will not, I guarantee you that will not be what this game is. So just put, genuinely, I think you are safe to put those fears in the box. Halo's not getting rebooted, and it's not going to be a silver timeline reboot of Halo 1. Rather, I think what's going to happen with this remake is it's going to end up being something of like a Halo 1 Definitive Edition. So it doesn't really change the story or anything like that, but rather it adds to the story elements of like surrounding details. Like, for example, I will be absolutely flabbergasted, and you can quote me on this, flabbergasted, if there's nothing from, say, The Flood, or First Strike, or Fireteam Raven in this game. I think what they'll end up doing is tie CE in with a lot of the kind of surrounding aspects that weren't there when Bungie made Halo 1, but that they added to the universe afterwards. Kind of like how the Dead Space remake tied the first game in a lot more with ideas that they brought up in the second game that obviously they didn't have when they were developing the first game. I think it's going to be a similar kind of thing with this remake, where the story is going to be like 99%, if not 100% unchanged. It's just going to be added to make it fit with the surrounding details a lot more. There are legitimately a billion and one cool ass things that they could do with a Halo 1 remake to add to the already god tier Halo 1 experience, man. I mean, I can, and in my next video, I will sit here for a silly amount of time and just talk about the vast potential of this game. But for now, all I'm going to say is that do not expect this game to be a reboot. If anything, look at it as something like a definitive edition of Halo 1. And then kind of to extend on that, another concern that I see people having is like, oh, it's just another remake, it's kind of boring, I'd rather have something new. But the whole point of a remake is that it's meant to make what is old new again, but also familiar. A remake is a completely different ballgame to a remaster. 9 times out of 10, I'd say that remakes, when again done right, feel like brand new games while also feeling very familiar, which I think there's like a very fine line that you walk with a remake, where if you make it too new, it doesn't feel like a remake and it doesn't honor the original game, whereas if you make it too similar, then what's the point? And I think if they can walk that fine line, then it will be done very, very well. We also, by the way, don't know who's doing this. Like, Tom Warren just said Microsoft, so for all we know, it's not even 343 making this game. It could just be, I don't know, just another studio. It could be Certain Affinity, although somehow I doubt that. It could be an entirely different studio. There was a leak, I think, early last year when the studio first imploded, that 343 were becoming something of like a publisher rather than a developer. And this could be the first instance of that. This could be the first instance of them handing the IP to another developer to make something like this. Because, call me crazy, but a remake doesn't sound like the kind of game that 343 would make. We'll touch more on that in a second, though. Now, something that I've not seen people talking much about yet, but I guarantee will pop up soon, is the idea that if this remake is in the Unreal Engine and not Blam or Slipspace as it was in Infinite, then it's not going to feel like Halo, right? Now, some people like to dismiss this feel like Halo thing off as just like, oh, nostalgia or just subjectivity, but I really disagree with that, because there is that kind of like indescribable Halo feel that you get from Halo games made in Blam that you don't get from other games, right? It's very hard to nail down what makes that Halo feel, but I think we can all agree that that Halo feel absolutely exists. Now, the concern here is that we've never seen that feel replicated in any other engine. But at the same time, the reason for that is because no one's ever tried. Of course, there have been fan games made in like Unity or Unreal or God knows what else, right? But a fan game is very different to a game made with AAA developers and money, right? It's very, very different, completely different ball game. Not to say that one is invalidated by the other, not at all, but with multiple years of development and the resources of AAA, you'd at least hope they try and replicate that Halo feel as much as they can. And on that note, speaking of the Halo feel, if you ask me, the main contributor to that feel is Halo's physics. The way that objects, vehicles, and ragdolls interact with the player and the environment, for example, really nails down that kind of Halo feel. And, well, the physics engine that Halo has always used since Halo 1 to do that is called Havoc, and Havoc is not exclusive to the Blam engine. In fact, Havoc is almost like a universal engine plugin that you can use in any engine and that you can tweak and tune to be exactly like it was in the Halo games. So you can literally just plug Havoc into the Unreal Engine, change like metrics. I mean, I'm massively simplifying it here, FYI, but you see what I mean. Change the metrics and tweak stuff until it matches how it was in Halo, and then I think that will go a long way to recreating that Halo feel. There's also stuff like the visual effect of seeing a Spartan or Elite shields flare up, or seeing like the VFX of a grenade going off, but I think for me mostly it's the physics and the way that players and items and objects and vehicles interact with the environment and each other. And that is replicable. That can be replicated in other engines. So I think the Halo feel is definitely achievable in another engine. Granted, it's not going to be easy to get it, and it's going to take a lot of time, I'd assume, but it's possible. Now, another major concern that I've seen certain people having is the whole Halo going to PlayStation thing, and this remake being potentially Halo's first foray into the PlayStation market. Now, I get why some people feel so strongly about this. I understand. I mean, not to go all soy jack, but if you guys can see, I literally have my OG Xbox Crystal in the back there, one of my babies, and I have a ton of other consoles in there. I used to adore Xbox. I was actually self-admitted, to be honest with you, Xbox fanboy in the OG Xbox and 360 era. But obviously, things have changed a lot since then. Xbox is not what it used to be, and that's, well, understatement of the century, right? So I think you have to ask yourself, what do you want to succeed more, Halo or Xbox? If the answer is Xbox, then, well, fair enough. You're never going to agree with Halo going on PlayStation. It's a complete moot point. Nothing that Xbox or PlayStation or 343 or anybody under the sun will ever do will change your mind. But if you want to see Halo succeed more so than Xbox, and you want Halo to reach its Halo 3 levels of popularity again, then it being on more platforms can only be a good thing for that. Now, of course, it being on multiple platforms is not the be-all end-all. It being on PlayStation and PC and Xbox does not, like, instantly assure that it will be, like, millions of players every day, Halo 3 levels of popular. The game, of course, has to be good. It has to release in a good state, which 343 haven't done since 2012, which is going to be a huge, huge task if they are the ones doing it. But it's a huge factor, and it will absolutely help. Okay, but the probably most prevalent complaint, concern, issue, worry, anxiety-inducing fear factor that I've seen is if the remake doesn't stay true to the original Halo 1. Halo 1 is nothing short of a masterpiece, right? The game is nigh on perfect. It revolutionized God knows how many things, from controls to gameplay to the amount of weapons you hold in a first-person shooter. Halo 1 was revolutionary, and to this day, I still think it's honestly the most fun, in terms of at least campaign, the most fun Halo campaign to play. It's in terms of AI and weapon sandbox and the way that everything interacts, for me, it's still peak. And so with that in mind, people are very concerned that you can't recapture that, right? Bungie pulled it off in 2001 and you can't recapture that. To which I would disagree, right? So I feel very similarly about Halo 1 that I do about Resident Evil 4. And truth be told, I was very anxious about Resident Evil 4 Remake. That game, to me, the original one, is like that. It's one of those games like Halo 2 and Halo 1 for me that goes beyond just a piece of media that I love. And it's one of those games that I feel almost like in my personality. It's one of those games that ties into me as a person. So it's almost like I've got a personal connection to it. Not to go all like schizo crazy or anything, but I'm sure you guys know what I mean, right? So I was very nervous about that, and they pulled it off. They managed it. They actually managed to create a remake that was very true to the original whilst also feeling fresh. And I think they can, again, not saying they will, but they can do that with a Halo 1 remake. The three main aspects of staying true to the original are the story, the aesthetic, and the gameplay. So let's go through them more briefly. So the story, like I already said, I think this game will end up being not a rewrite, not a retcon, but rather a definitive edition of Halo 1 that just adds to it with surrounding material. And if that is what happens, then not only do they stay true to the original, but they improve it with extra details that don't invalidate anything, don't break anything, don't ruin anything. They just add to the overall experience. In terms of aesthetic, if 343 were making this game 10 years ago, I would be having a heart attack right now, quite frankly, because they did not understand the concept of retaining an aesthetic at that point. However, now, we came out of Infinite, right? And I would say that even people who despise Infinite, at least the aesthetic that that game launched with was nigh on perfect. It was immaculate. Of course, it was missing certain things like biomes and stuff, but like the Forerunner art style, the UNSC art style, the natural environments, gorgeous. Almost universally loved, right? People adore them. And so right now, I truly think that people shouldn't be as concerned about the aesthetic as they are. I get the idea that some people are like, oh, well, it's going to be designed by committee, or it's going to be designed by people that don't understand the original aesthetic. And I mean, I don't have anything to say to directly quell those worries. All I'll say is look at how 343 did Halo's aesthetic in Halo 5 compared to Halo Infinite, and realize that that is a similar direction they're going to be going in with this. At least I presume it is. I hope it is. I don't think aesthetic is something that we should be worrying about per se. In fact, if anything, I think we should be kind of excited for the aesthetic of this game, because I'd imagine one of the main reasons that they're making this in the first place is because they know that everyone hates Combat Evolved Anniversary and just how wrong and not good that game looks. And I mean, okay, we've said it before, 343 committed the same mistake twice and they made it like 7 times in a row, but I just think they will know that after the feedback of Halo 1 Anniversary, they can't make that same mistake again. We'll see though. The third thing though is the gameplay, and I'm going to be honest with you, this is the main thing that I have concerns with. The gameplay is the one thing that I do have issues with, and I'm kind of worried about them doing, because if they start adding sprint and clamber and slide to Halo 1, I will have a big issue with that. I'm going to start taking issues, because that stuff should not be anywhere near Halo 1. Granted, I am more receptive for that stuff in a campaign than a multiplayer, but still, I don't think that sprint, clamber, slide, aiming down sights, or any of that nonsense should be anywhere near Halo 1's campaign. And to kind of piggyback off that, the main concern that I've seen people having, honestly, besides it not staying true to the original, is the fact that remaking a game that has already had an Anniversary Edition is a waste of time, and that instead they should be focusing on Halo 7, or they should be focusing on a spin-off game, or even more so, if they want to remake a game, they should be doing Halo 3 Anniversary. And, well, let's address them one by one again. So, as for Halo 7, I would assume that that's 343's main game that they're working on right now, right? Somehow, I just don't think that this remake is done by 343. I get the feeling that it's going to be outsourced, because, I mean, it's a remake, right? Like, I don't see the main studio doing that. I also see some people saying that this is, like, going to take the place of Halo 7, and, like, nah, don't buy into that. Like, Halo 7, I guarantee you, is right now 343's main priority. I guarantee you that this is just being outsourced, or if it is being done by 343, it's probably a smaller team, whilst the main bulk of the team work on Halo 7. Another thing is that some people are kind of annoyed that this is seemingly taking the place of a spin-off game. They're like, why are you making a remake when instead you could be doing a spin-off that we've asked for years? And well, although I understand why people are concerned about that, I just ask that if you're in that boat, just take a step back and look at this project from a kind of broader spectrum, right? So if, and again, it's a big if, but if they go in the direction of tying Halo 1 in with surrounding material like The Flood, like the graphic novel, like First Strike, like Fireteam Raven, well, it could hit on, honestly, almost every single note that we want a spin-off game to hit on, right? For example, The Flood is full of ODST stories, like Antonio Silva and the other ODSTs that storm the Truth and Reconciliation and blow it up, right? You could do something about them. You want to look at like a Flood horror game? Well, Halo CE is like the greatest source of creating offshoot Flood material. We've got the Jenkins story, we've got the Infinite Succor, we've got Marvin Morbuto. There are so many things they could do with the Flood, and talking about the Infinite Succor, also, everyone's asking for like an Arbiter or an Elite spin-off game as well. They could do a game where you play as Artas and go into the Infinite Succor and raid it, or they could include the Arbiter somehow, or they could include the Heretics and they could show a story of the Heretics going to the gas mine, like even more than we saw in Halo 2 Anniversary, and defecting. There is so much that they could do if done right that would hit on every note that we want from a spin-off game. Every note. It could be done so well. So to innocently write this project off as just, I'm not interested because it's taking the place of a spin-off, A, we don't even know for a fact that it is taking the place of a spin-off, and B, if it is, then it could hit every note that we want from a spin-off. The potential and the material is there. And thirdly, very fittingly, people are annoyed that we're getting another go at Halo 1 over the long-awaited, long-beloved Halo 3 Anniversary. And to that, I will say that, if anything, this could lead to Halo 3 Anniversary. Call me schizo, hear me out, right? Trust me on this one. So, look at Resident Evil, right? Resident Evil 2's remake was made, and it was kind of like a litmus test for the concept of remaking the old Resident Evil games. That game sold like 19-20 million copies for a remake. Then we got Resident Evil 3 Remake, then we got Resident Evil 4 Remake. We're now reportedly getting Code Veronica and Resident Evil 5 as well. And because of that one game, because of RE2 Remake doing so well, it opened the floodgates. And I genuinely believe that that is what could happen with this game. If we send market signals to 343 and the powers that be that, yeah, this remake is really good and we want more, Who's to say they won't remake Halo 2 and add like the Juggernaut, the 4 in a tank level? Who's to say that they won't remake Halo 3 and give us Halo 3 anniversary after all these years and add stuff like High Charity and Flood Void and Flood, all the, see, like I could go on forever, right? I could go on forever. I think that to write this off because we should have had Halo 3 anniversary instead is, I understand it, totally understand it, but I think it's a little bit short-sighted because if this thing is treated like a Resident Evil remake, which I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be, this could very well lead to Halo 3 anniversary. And so those are the main concerns. Sorry if this video is a bit waffly. I was going to script it, but I thought this would be a lot better if I just kind of did it off the top of my head, ad-libbed it, was a bit more sincere and that kind of stuff. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. I really hope that if you are one of the people, or were one of the people who were concerned about this game and were kind of on edge, that I've managed to win you over. If not, let me know down in the comments and let me know why. If I have won you over, I'd love to hear it down below in the comments. My next video is, I don't know when it's going to be, because frankly, I feel not well right now. As you can probably tell in my very pasty white face, I need to go and have a lie down. So it may be tomorrow, it may be on Monday, maybe on Tuesday, we'll see. But I'm going to talk about all of the potential of this game, because as you can tell, I am excited, I am cautious, I am not fully hopiuming into this, but I'm excited, and I really want to talk about a lot of the stuff that I'm excited about for this game, because I think I can continue to win people over that aren't entirely enthralled. So with all that said, I'm going to run this video out. Thank you all very, very much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Good times ahead. I hope, don't huff the hopium too much, but allow yourself just a little bit of hopium. Just let yourself have a little bit. Trust me, just have a little bit. I promise you, it won't get you addicted. It'll just taste good. So, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you to all of my amazing patrons for the continued support over there, as per usual. And thank you all so much for watching for the 17th time. I really appreciate it. I love you all, and I'll catch you all in the next one.